Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. And this evening our guest is Dr. Anura Ekanayake, who is an independent economist, having served in other roles previously, but he's now happily retired and an independent economist. We thought we'll get him here and ask him, because you see, we see rising taxes, and that provides no relief for the masses in Sri Lanka, who are of course continuing to struggle. And it appears that politicians, legislators of the day, don't appear to have an action plan for recovery. They may have lots of ideas about policy, but policy doesn't produce dollars in the immediate run, nor does it produce milk powder or milk for Sri Lanka's children. And you know, malnutrition is a big ticket item now. The after effects of that won't be felt immediately. They'll be felt in a couple of years' time, 2-3 years' time. Usually malnutrition results in stunted growth, reduced IQ, and so on and so forth. And if we are prepared for that, if our government is prepared for that, well, probably the people are not. Let's find out what these effective taxes are doing to the public. Dr. Anura Ekanayake, very good evening to you. Welcome to Newsline.
Good evening to you, Faraz. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Professor Dr. Ekanayake, tell me, Sri Lanka has an economic crisis, we have a dollar crisis, we have a food crisis, we have a tax crisis, and now we also have an interest crisis. I'm not talking about the crises in terms of the brain drain and so on. We can leave that for another time. But how on earth are we going to get out of these crises that we have now, Doctor?
For us, out of those 4 crises you just mentioned, apart from one, all the others are due to the same cause. The only exception is the food crisis, the agriculture issue. All the others are due to living beyond our means over 70 years or so.
Right.
Long period where there have been government has been spending more than it was earning, so there was budget deficit. We have been importing more than we are exporting, so there's a trade deficit. These have mounted, and the gaps were bridged by borrowing, international borrowing and domestic borrowing. But now it has come to a stage where, actually early this year, Sri Lanka couldn't borrow any more from overseas because our credit ratings were so bad, no one could believe that we'll be able to repay. Secondly, we went and defaulted. When we were pushed to the wall, we didn't have any reserves left. We had no option but to default.
Right.
So once you are defaulted, who's going to give you money? That is foreign money. Local money is limited because if there's no printing, what you would have is the amount of money which is enough to allow the transactions to take place in the country. But the government went and cut taxes, and as a result there was a huge spree of expanding money supply, money printing, and cost inflation. So far as that's what I said, apart from agriculture, all the other 4 things arise from the same source, living beyond our means. Agriculture is very much unconnected to budget deficit, etc. And it's very bad policy, wrong timing, the speed was wrong, all of that. And so we had this banning of chemical fertilizer as well as pesticides. And that impacted not only food agriculture, in the sense crop agriculture,
Yeah.
but also plantation agriculture, and then also livestock, because livestock require maize and other food stock to feed them. So this is the background
Yes, but
to what happened.
yes, now of course we have this food crisis.
Right.
We have reports of kids who are fainting. And we have reports of teachers who are not teaching but arranging for their the children in their care to have at least their lunch, and that is at the mercy of local humanitarian action from the people of the area. And thank God for that, because Sri Lanka is actually quite high up on the giving list. Some years ago they did that, we've ended up quite high there. All that is well and good, but you know, how can you bring the prices down? The interest rates are now over 30%, and we have, if you look at fertilizer, for example, previous to all this sort of crises, the fertilizer that's used in the production of paddy cost 7,000 rupees a ton. Today, the same fertilizer costs 200,000, and the fertilizer used for other product, other farming produce, is 360,000 rupees a ton. So quite clearly, with the prices so high and with interest rates so high, there is no chance of bringing the prices of these agricultural products down, is there?
There is no quick solution to the problem, but for us, we know, it's very well known that our agricultural productivity, output per acre, from rice to plantation crops right across the board, is very low.
Indeed.
So by improving technology, it is possible to raise the output over a period of time, and thereby bring down the cost of production.
But can't we have subsidies at the moment? Because, you know, all these free market theories and so on are pretty good, and it will eventually work. But right now, with 62% of Sri Lanka's working population dependent on their daily wage, there's absolutely no way that they can afford the rising prices and indirect taxes.
No, the issue there for us is the simple issue of who pays, because the subsidy means there's an actual cost of it, but you are providing it to the whoever the target group at less than the cost.
Yeah.
Somebody else has to pick the tab.
Yes.
Now the government
Yeah.
has a massive budget deficit. Current financial year, it is supposed to be somewhere around 9 to 10% of the GDP, when a healthy budget deficit should be around 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, it's not possible to borrow from overseas.
No.
Right. It is also not possible to borrow from the domestic market, because if the government borrows from the domestic market, the interest rate will go up even further. So it's all tied up now in such a tangle.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you give subsidies, then where are you going to have savings? Where will the government cut expenditure in order to finance the subsidy?
I have a quick answer to that. It may be tongue-in-cheek, but it is for the government to divest itself of all state-owned enterprises, because government surely have no business being in business. Almost every single state-owned enterprise is a drain on the treasury, a drain on Dr. Ekanayake, on me and you and everybody else. And so legislators should be allowed to formulate policy and not get involved in running businesses owned by the state, which are in any case loss-making, and provide an ideal platform for corruption.
I fully agree with you. It's something which should be done very early. The right noises are being heard, but finally it's about implementation. How long is the government
Yes,
going to
because
take?
very cleverly, some of our political parties, for example, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the POTUA, they both have this, it's inbuilt, it's in the ideology. We shall not sell state resources. Really? Even though it's costing the Treasury month in, month out.
Yeah.
And it's costing, you know, if, for example, Sri Lankan Airlines was a privately owned business, the person looking to make money out of signing the lease agreement, like was discovered on the Airbus deal in a British court, and the local guy is still within the court system with no sort of end to it. Britain has already done their bit, fined the company concerned, collected the money, and Sri Lanka is still struggling. Anyway, so, you know, if it was privately owned, that chap wouldn't have been able to make any money because the shareholders will ask him to go take a big ride, you know. And no minister can go and ask an independent privately owned airline, give me a freebie, give me so much, and so on. So don't you think that overall it might not be the best thing? You can't do it straight away, you can't do it overnight, which President Gota tried with the fertilizer issue, but eventually shouldn't the government sell?
Government should. There's absolutely no doubt that government must prioritize which are the largest loss-making entities and begin to restructure and then divest them, so that this huge drain on the state coffers can be reduced, if not totally stopped, and those funds can be diverted to the needy sections of the population. And the other related part is lack of transparency and accountability in relation to government procurement, investment projects, all of that. So if those are attended to as fast as possible, then I believe there will be sufficient funds to fund subsidy programs to the needy. I see the issue of subsidies has to resolving that has to go in hand with saving money elsewhere. That's about it, and that has to be done. The question is, will the political processes permit that to happen quickly? So that's something we'll have to wait and see. But I think there, what is most important is to very clearly articulate the issue with examples in simple language, so that people can understand, and there will be support for that.
But also, people will understand if they can see, if the optics were right, if they could see the president, the prime minister, the cabinet ministers, the governor of the central bank, the monetary board members, and you know, ministry secretaries who are chief accounting officers of each ministry. If they can see these people actually, if the optics was right, if they saw these people traveling around in smaller cars,
that's right,
and if they sort of displayed very overtly some form of transparency in terms of their expenditure, you know, the expenditure. I'd like all these ministers to tell us that pre-crisis we consumed X amount of units of electricity, for example, and now within the crisis we've reduced, we've rejigged, and we are now only spending so much. I'd like them to say that, because then the public will surely be far more understanding than they are now.
Yeah, otherwise, if not, it is essentially the government asking the people to reduce consumption, tighten belts, and they can carry on in the way they have always been doing, and which is not right. It's setting the example. The optics, as you called it, have to be there, upfront, sharp, visible, palpable, if I may say so. Then it might be, it might be less painful to sacrifice. Here it is one-sided. It's only and sadly, high interest rates, taxes, all these things hit the poorest of the poor hardest, because they almost 100% of their income goes for bare minimum survival. So when prices have doubled or more, it means their income is halved or even less.
Indeed.
Right.
On that note, let's go for a quick break, take a peek at this evening's headlines, and then come right back. We are in conversation with Dr. Anura Ekanayake, economist. See you on the other side of the break.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Mortal remains of most venerable Pallegama Sirinivasa Thera placed in Anuradhapura. Tax hikes a must to achieve revenue targets, says President. Individual court cases to be filed against police officers who interfere in peaceful protests. A statement from the Socialist Youth Union. Former President noticed to appear at the Supreme Court. 2 people bathing in the Mahaveli River swept away by strong currents. Rescue mission launched.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD. 25% for 2 months. 25.5% for 4 months. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with the economist, Dr. Anura Ekanayake. Thank you very much for your questions sent by SMS or WhatsApp, or both even, to 0772 300 305, card coming up on your screens. Will these prices that have skyrocketed ever come down? From the public.
Short answer is no.
No.
Some of the prices can come down. Let me illustrate it this way. For example, fuel prices, gas, some of the food prices, they are called commodities, can come down in the global market because the world economy is slowing down. There is a very high probability now of a recession later this year, next year, or perhaps a year after.
Yeah.
So they're slowing down, and therefore commodity prices are easing. So if we don't do anything wrong here, the benefit of the reduced prices can be transferred to the general public. So that can happen.
Right.
The other is, as I said earlier, if domestic output, say agriculture for example, increases sharply, even though the input prices have gone up, the cost of production per unit will come down, and then people can enjoy the benefit of that. Similarly, if the public sector, if there is no waste, inefficiency, corruption, the same services can be given at a lower cost. And if so, the cost of maintaining the government can come down, and those funds can be available. So some drop in prices
Yeah.
can take place and should take place. However, at this point of time, it's very difficult to imagine even that we will revert to, say, 2018 prices. Right? It doesn't happen.
One of our viewers, or yes, one, is complaining that we've used up so much of our time, but we've not given them a solution to this problem. What is the solution? Is there a solution?
There is no easy, quick, single solution.
Right.
There's a whole heap of macro policy changes required, and there's even larger amount of so-called micro policy changes, that is sector-wise changes required for us to get back to where we were in 2018. I'm using 2018 as a benchmark
because we seem to have had it good then.
See, 2019 we had Easter bombing.
Yeah.
Then 2021 COVID, right? We had all of that, and so we had a big hit right along the way. So really the benchmark should be 2018, if we at least to try and get to that as quickly as possible.
Our viewers, members of the public, citizens no doubt of Sri Lanka, they've understood this very well, because the question is, what about recovery of robbed money? Asset recovery, that's what they're talking about.
I think first, which is a very important thing, it must be done fast. We need to have the required laws enacted as fast as possible in order to be able to recover stolen assets. There are examples elsewhere, and we can easily follow them in order to do that, but I don't see any initiatives in that direction at the moment. I see there is a draft, I'm searching for words here, anti-corruption bill in circulation now, but it's yet to be seen.
How high or low is your confidence as to whether Sri Lanka will have any form of anti-corruption laws, election funding, political funding laws, and of course asset recovery mechanisms in place, let's say in the next 2 years?
Very low. Very low, because I don't see any serious discussion taking place at the Parliament on the need to do so, and steps being taken.
But the darling of the intelligentsia in this country is now the President. He's the executive president. He's got untrammeled powers, none of which have been taken away from him yet. Why can't he exercise those untrammeled powers and say, you know, I'm bringing this in, and this is the Gazette, and that's it? Because they're very good at putting out gazettes when they want to, controlling the Aragalia, innocent, peaceful, youthful protesters.
That's right. He should do it.
Do you think he will?
I don't think he will.
Bearing in mind that he's backed by 134.
Yeah, I don't think he will, because we don't see any signs of it yet. That's the first thing. You know, for us to form an opinion, we got to see something in action. We haven't, so therefore, I feel we should do it as fast as possible, and we, the general public, these kind of forums, media, everywhere, we should talk about it and put pressure, try and bring it to the top of the agenda, because I personally feel that that is what the biggest reform required in this nation is, that the others can follow.
Sri Lanka's record on investigating high-profile cases is pathetic.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, agreed.
somebody else is saying, do you think that the formation of a national government will be the solution?
There was hope. I also thought it might be a good idea, but I know now that it will not happen. So why waste our time talking about a national government when
it won't happen?
It's not going to happen, because different political parties have very clearly said that they will not join a national government. So therefore it's out of consideration now, isn't it?
But if one is the champion of democracy and so on, and if democracy is part of your DNA, then surely you will put the people out of their misery and their collective discomfort expressed through Aragale, and declare in February a fresh set of elections, starting with Parliament. Isn't that what
democracy, clearly democracy is about giving the representative democracy is about giving the opportunity to people to decide, and the only mechanism we have for that is elections.
But they seem to be, we had the chairman of PAFROL here the other day, Rona Hetiarach, and he said that these are delaying tactics, referring to the attempt to go back to the 4,000 councillors rather than the 8,000 and so on. Provincial councils not been elections for so long now, and it appears that the provinces are ruled by governors. Governors, yes. You know, representing the whims, fancies, and wishes of the president.
That's true. Yeah. So, there are arguments for and against on the timing. You know, some are arguing that the current economic climate is not conducive for having early elections because of, you know, fuel issue and so Brexit issue and so on and so forth. So giving a date is another matter, but the fact that early elections are required in order to give the opportunity to people to decide what is the policy framework the people need, who are the people who are going to put that into effect. All of that has to be decided. So,
one of our viewers is also asking us, with such a vast knowledge available, why do people like certain advisors who advised President Gotabaya about the benefits of moving to an overnight all organic farming community, how do such advisors actually ascend to that position?
That's a question we really have to ask.
We need a forensic audit to find out.
Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa himself, isn't it? Because at least from what is there in the public domain, some of the advocates of organic agriculture were not agriculturists. I mean, if you decide on a particular policy framework for a sector, it is first the people who are in it who ought to be consulted. The people who till the land in agriculture, but also people who have specialized in those fields, the experts. When
World Bank data showed that organic farming produce had enjoyed only just under 1.7%, Sri Lanka's move to an all organic farming community overnight smacks of incompetence at best.
Yeah. I find it hard to find a suitable adjective to describe the inappropriateness of that policy change. And what do we see? We see shortages of food all over the place. even plantation output, tea output is down by 10%.
Indeed.
There is no maize for feeding poultry, for example, for dairy.
And on that note, Dr. Anura Ekanayake, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live.
Thank you.
It is now time for the Primetime News. Take care, have a great evening, and God bless you all.